What is up, guys? It is Melissa, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Melissa Ellen. I do true crime videos. Sometimes they're a little chaotic. Sometimes they're inner hit and miss. I kind of disappear every so often, but we do really good research on this channel. So if you are interested in true crime, make sure you hit subscribe down below. For those of you that have been with me, you know that I've been missing for the past month. I'll talk to you guys at the end of this video. I just really want to focus at the beginning of the video on what is the most important thing, and that is that there's finally been justice served for Samantha Josephson. Now, if you're not familiar with the Samantha Josephson case, this was a story that we talked about back in April of 2019 when she had disappeared in March of 2019. I will link the video we did, but to recap what happened that night, Samantha was out with friends and she ordered herself an Uber ride. She went out to the corner, she waited for her Uber ride and stepped into what she thought was her ride. She thought this was her Uber ride, and it was not. It was someone pretending to be an Uber so that they could pick her up. She disappeared and was discovered deceased the next day in some woods about 60 miles from where she disappeared, and unfortunately she had been stabbed to death. This case shocked a lot of people. This was a beautiful young girl, and there was this video of her just seemingly willingly getting into a car that just took her away, and then she's found brutally attacked. Now, if you followed along with the story or you saw my video, you know that the next night there was an arrest made in this case. A man by the name of Nathaniel Rowland was determined to be the owner of the vehicle that was seen on surveillance picking up Samantha. As well, in his vehicle there was blood, there was her cell phone, there was ATM videos which seemed to show him covering his face, trying to use her ATM card. There was blood all over his belongings. There was a weapon that was found at his girlfriend's house that had blood on it. There was so much evidence against him, yet him and his family were asserting very strongly that Nathaniel Rowland was innocent, that although his car was used, although his belongings were used, and although ultimately find out their cell phones are together and every bit of evidence, because Nathaniel Rowland did not have any wounds on himself or DNA on himself, because he didn't have any wounds on himself, his family and himself and his defense tried to assert that that meant he was innocent. I'm going to walk you through everything that happened that night that we do know based on the forensics, and you'll kind of realize why there was such a preponderance of evidence that makes you just wonder, why in the hell did we even have to go to trial? He did it. He's convicted of it now, so we can clearly say he did this crime. And for that, in July of 2021, Nathaniel Rowland was convicted of kidnapping and the murder of Samantha, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Let's go ahead and jump into the video. I often find it so hard to talk about victims in cases. You know, I don't know them, and I see little bits of information about them. And Sammy is one of those that is no doubt one that sticks out of my mind. I remembered her story when I looked it up again. I remembered everything about her because she was so loved by so many people. And I think that's what really just gets you. How in the hell does this monster get this smart, beautiful, educated girl into his car? Sammy was a senior at the University of South Carolina. She had been a student there studying political science and was due to graduate within the next month or month and a half with her degree. She had also received a full scholarship to the University Drexel Law School in Pennsylvania, where she was going to be attending. Her dream was to study international law. She was a sorority sister. She had a large group of friends. She studied abroad. This was someone that was very respected and had a large group of circle of friends that loved and cared for her. She also had a sister, as well as her mother and father, Marcy and Seymour, who were very involved in her life, and they did testify at her trial to give an impact statement about how severely this impacted them. Now, also very relevant to this story and this night is the fact that Sammy had a long-term boyfriend by the name of Greg. The two had been dating seriously since 2017, when Greg was also a student at the University of South Carolina. And he was also living in the Hub, which is an off-campus housing area for students of the University of South Carolina. The university is located in the Columbia, South Carolina area, and the area that they're going out at night is in in 5 Points, which is in Columbia. So a couple things to keep in consideration is that we have the Hub, which is the off-campus housing, and then we have 5 Points. And 5 Points is just a really happening downtown district where all the bars and clubs are at, but also people are cruising their cars up and down the road in South Carolina in this area of 5 Points. And it's just a very popular place. Now, Greg had graduated in 2018, and this was now 2019. This two stayed extremely close throughout the entire year that he was living about 2 hours away. He consistently made the 2-hour drive to come and hang out with Sammy during the week or on the weekends. It was a regular thing for Sammy to go out on the weekend and end up calling him, asking him to make the 2-hour drive to come and hang out with her, which he said he often would do. So now let's talk about what happened on this particular night. On this particular night, it is Thursday, March 28th of 2019. And Sammy was going out with her friends to the 5 Points area. Now, in my original video, the story that I presented to the news is that Sammy had went out with friends, got separated from them, and decided to call herself an Uber because she needed a way to get home. According to her friends and Greg, since it has been clarified to say that's not exactly what happened. They all went out, and it was very common to get an Uber to go back to the Hub where the housing area was. It was too far to walk there, and most everyone just got an Uber back. So this was extremely common and was exactly the plan that Sammy had for that night. She was going to go out with friends, and when she was ready to go home, she would get herself an Uber. And that's exactly what she did because she needed to work the next day at 11. So there wasn't any sort of issue. She didn't get lost. She wasn't, sloppily off by herself trying to find a ride home. This was just something that she completely planned. Now, throughout the night, she was on the phone with her boyfriend, Greg. They FaceTimed each other when she ran into some friends. They were texting each other. They were sharing photos. This was just something they normally did. And in fact, she was trying to convince him, like, hey, come, why don't you go ahead and drive down and hang out with me again to celebrate? But they had such big plans for that weekend of her coming to visit him that he was like, no, I'm not going to make the drive. I'm going to see you, in 2 days. And she left that night and did what she thought was the safer thing to do, and that was to order an Uber. Unfortunately, she ran into Nathaniel Rowland. So at around 2 a.m., Samantha has ordered herself an Uber. She's done it on her iPhone, and she's now standing out on the curb waiting for the Uber to arrive. This part is the part that finally clicked in court when it was presented that explained how he was able to trick her to get into his car. So Sammy is standing out on the curb waiting for a ride. She's obviously standing by herself. The surveillance shows that there are tons of people around. So she's in no harm. She's not looking nervous in any way. She's just waiting. And I think a lot of us know what this looks like when you see somebody waiting for a ride. And you see in the surveillance, you see a black Chevy Impala pass by in the other direction, or on the other side of the road, pass by and then make a U-turn back in her direction. That black Impala then turns into the parking lot next to her. Once that Impala turns around, this is how he did it. This is exactly how he did it and how he knew. At that time, when the black Impala has turned around, a silver car pulls right up in front of Sammy. And Sammy walks up to that car as if it's her Uber and starts to open the door. And you can tell from the surveillance, I don't know if you've ever done this. I think a lot of people know what this looks like. You've gone to go to get an Uber, you go to reach for the door, you have kind of an exchange and you go, oh, sorry, this isn't my Uber. And you back up from the car. And that's exactly what happened. So the driver of that black Impala is staring right at her and knows that she's trying to get in an Uber. And he just takes a chance. He just takes a flat out chance. He pulls out of that parking lot, pulls up in front of her. And I just wonder so much, did he say anything or did he even have to try? All he did was just pulled up right in front of her and just waited to see if she got in the car. And she got in the car. And at that point, she was trapped. It was later proven that the child locks for the window and the doors had been activated. So we don't know when Samantha started to realize something was wrong, when she decided to start fighting to try to get out. But when she did, This is where the kidnapping charge comes in, because she was not able to get out of that vehicle as those locks had been engaged. Now, her boyfriend Greg and her were on the phone when she got the Uber, and I believe the call ended with her saying, okay, my Uber's here, I will call you later. And he is tracking her on the Find My Friends app. I hope a lot of us do this. I know I do this with my kids when they're getting a ride or they're leaving from like a high school football game or something. I watch their phone and I call them. Like if they seem like they're going on a weird route and they'll be like, oh, we're stopping at the store. Okay, cool. I'm just checking. Like I just want to know where you're at in case something changes. So Greg is doing this. And at some point he realizes that, remember, he used to live at the Hub housing area and he used to party in the 5 Points area, and they always used to take Ubers, and he comes down the weekends often. So he knows something's not right because they're still continuing too far in the wrong direction. They should have turned around by now, no matter what was happening. And so he decides to call her and she doesn't answer. That's very concerning to him. So he starts texting her and he's realizing that her text messages are delivering. If you have an iPhone, you know that they show as delivered if they made it to the phone. And then if you've actually read them and you have read receipts on, then it would show as read. Normally they had read receipts. So when he sent her a message, it should have shown as read, but all it was showing was as delivered. So he's getting worried. He ends up calling her roommate. They start looking, they're tracking her phone. Now, there was a lot of people who questioned why the friends didn't freak out further, why they didn't call police immediately. And I think they did what a lot of people do, and they rationalized. They thought a lot of different things, like she had dropped her phone, she lost it, somebody stole it, she went somewhere else, she made a stop, she maybe even a car accident or witnessed an accident, or all of these things that could have happened, but in their mind, there's just no way that it's the Uber driver that she called for came and got her and then took her. Like their brain isn't thinking that. But what they don't realize is that the Uber driver had actually showed up, could not locate her, and had canceled the ride. So she wasn't with the Uber driver. Obviously, she was with someone pretending to be, and that's why this case was called the fake Uber driver. Throughout the night, they tried to locate her, but eventually her phone had stopped tracking in an area of Montgomery Avenue, which is only several miles from the area she had last been seen at in 5 Points. They ended up going out there the next day. The boyfriend travels out to the area. They search around, they go to this area of Montgomery Avenue, they can't find anything to do with Sammy, and they end up returning to the 5 Points Bar District area, where they eventually find the surveillance video that shows Sammy getting into a black Chevy Impala. And at this time, now the police and the news are putting out a search to look for not only Samantha Josephson, but this black Chevy Impala. Sammy's friends and family returned back to the Montgomery Avenue area to look to see if anybody can find that car that had been seen, because that's where her phone last tracked to. And again, they are having no luck. Eventually, the family is brought in along with the friends by about 10 p.m. that night, and everyone's been questioned in detail. And that's when they find out that Sammy's remains had actually been found at 4 p.m. that day by some hunters in a very remote wooded area called New Zion, which is about 60 miles from where she went missing in the 5 Points area of Columbia, South Carolina. When her body was found, it was discovered that she had over 120 stab wounds, and that the location that her body was found was without a doubt not the crime scene at all whatsoever. And they knew this because she had been so brutally stabbed wherever she was stabbed at that she had, I believe, less than a liter of blood left inside of her. This was brought up a lot in the trial because that's how vicious it was, and it kind of leads into how you know for sure where the crime scene was. So that's where her body was discovered, and it was found in, and this was considered to be like not even really a road. This was rural farmland. Only people from there really knew it. They're just like it was an access area, but only the people who lived there knew to access it that way. It wasn't something that was common. If you went there during the night, you would get completely lost trying to even get yourself out of there. And this is important because Nathaniel Rowland does have links to that area via his family. So let's get to how we get to Nathaniel Rowland actually being found as the one who was responsible. So police are advised that they need to be on the lookout for this black Chevy Impala, as well as Samantha Josephson. There's an officer by the name of Officer Clark who is working in the 5 Points area along with many other officers, and they're advised to look for any Chevy Impala coming in and out of that area. At around 1:32 o'clock in the morning, this officer does come across a black Chevy Impala, and he goes up behind this vehicle. This vehicle makes a left at the light, and then this vehicle goes to the next street. I want to say it was Sumter, and now I didn't write it down, so I can't remember. But there's a one-way road, and it's a one-way road. And for some reason, this black Chevy Impala makes a left onto this one-way road. And so the officer puts on the lights and pulls this vehicle over. Once they pull them over, there's a traffic stop.
Correct.
What types of questions did you ask him?
Well, approaching the car, I smelled a strong odor of marijuana come from within the vehicle. So immediately I was like, hey, who's been smoking the marijuana inside the car? He freely said he was earlier. And then I asked him, do you have any identification on you? And he said he doesn't have any identification on him. At that point, that's when I asked him, can you step outside the car?
And he complied.
Correct.
And you indicated that you said something to him about why you pulled him over, and that's when he took off. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
What's going on, sir? You got your license? You got your license on you? I'm also Craddock, Columbia Police Department K9. No, no license on you. Why not?
Is that the hoodie you were describing?
Yep, it is.
And then the bandana underneath?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, man. Who's smoking the marijuana?
I had smoked some earlier, sir, when I was at home.
All right, man. You have to step on out, man. All right, here's the deal, man. I pulled your car over because it matches the suspect. Get your hand in your pocket. What are you, crazy? Get over here. Hey, get over here. Go, we're running. Hey, we're running.
The same officer stays with the vehicle, and in the vehicle, he notices several things that alert him that he needs to bring in a forensics unit. In the front seat, next to the driver's seat, like where the seatbelt goes in, like down in, if you drop something down there, they do find Samantha's phone, which is a rose gold iPhone 7, I believe it was, and it's in very good condition. Then in the back seat, they do discover what appears to be blood along the back seat and on the floorboard. And then in the trunk, they find what appears to be bleach. All of these things do end up being what they appear to be. And so they do have a forensics team come in. Okay, so what we need to know is that ultimately at this trial, Nathaniel Rowland is claiming that he knows that it was his car and his stuff, but that it wasn't him, that some unknown person came and took his car, committed these acts of violence, and then returned his car to him. And he decided, rather than telling anyone, calling the police or getting help, to clean it all up and sell any evidence that was from it. Like that's literally what his story is going to be. So police had to be like, okay, great. Okay, fine. So a couple things we know for sure. We already know that the car is the crime scene based on the amount of blood that was found in the vehicle. And yes, it is absolutely proven by the amount of bloodletting that happened into the vehicle, proved beyond a doubt that Sammy died inside of that vehicle. So we know, first of all, that it is the crime scene. So starting off with one of the most simple things is when the officer pulled over Nathaniel Rowland the morning of the 30th, she disappeared on the morning. She was taken on the morning of Friday at around 2:30 a.m. and then he was arrested on Saturday morning around 2:30 a.m. When right before he was arrested, the officer is on camera. He makes a left onto this one-way street. Well, very interesting, when they go back and they're looking at surveillance video of the night before when Sammy was taken, whoever was driving that Chevy Impala around the area is seen not only driving in front of the bar where she was taken from and pulling up in front of her when she gets on the car, but it's also seen making a left-hand turn on that same one-way street. It's kind of the first start that you're like, oh yeah, same person's driving the car, because you're driving the same way. As well as when Nathaniel was pulled over, it was very clear that he was laid way back in his seat. And I know a lot of people lay back, I do, but this was way laid back. And the person who was driving the car the night before, based on the surveillance video, also has the seat leaned all the way back. So now we have some things that are kind of like, oh, okay, well, it looks like Nathaniel was driving the car. So then we start talking about things like his cell phone. he had 2 different cell phones. One had Wi-Fi, one had it's a mess of what was going on with the cell phones. But the cell phone expert testified for hours and basically just showed that despite all of the activity of him turning the phones on and off and Wi-Fi and not Wi-Fi, it was very clear that on the night that Sammy disappeared, Nathaniel and Sammy's phones were together traveling down the road in the direction of Montgomery Avenue, and then Sammy's phone shut off and his phone continued out to the New Zion area where her remains were discovered. Okay, so now you know that not only is his car the crime scene and he's driving around the same way that Nathaniel drove around the night before, now we also know that the cell phones are staying together. Now, also found inside of Nathaniel Rowland's car was a letter that was written by his girlfriend at the time, a woman by the name of Maria. He had been dating Maria for about a month. He knew her in the past. She worked at a McDonald's and they had been hooking up for the past month. Now, Maria was in the middle of some sort of an issue with her roommate and had written a letter, and on the letter had her address in it, and this letter was inside the car. So when police came across this letter, they saw this address. They thought, we should go search this address as one of the many addresses. We should search for evidence in regards to this case. And sure enough, police found in the backyard or in the trash can tons of evidence. They found Nathaniel Rowland's clothing that had blood from Samantha Josephson. They found a murder weapon that ended up having Samantha Josephson blood on it and was found to be the murder weapon. They found gloves. All of this evidence was found to prove that Nathaniel Rowland did it. So now they're going to talk to Maria because they need to ask Maria, are these his things? And then this is where they get a lot of information from Maria. And Maria's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable because while we do not think that Maria had anything to do with what happened to Sammy, it's really questionable on whether or not she might have considered helping cover up the next day or clean up. But according to her, she absolutely did not help in any way and was just scared and didn't know what to do. So let me tell you what she didn't know what to do about. On the morning that Sammy was taken, remember it was Friday morning at around 2:30 in the morning. That same morning at 7 a.m., Maria is supposed to go to work at McDonald's, and Nathaniel is supposed to be her ride. She wakes up at 5:30 in the morning, and Nathaniel's not there. She ends up messaging him, asking, like, hey, where are you at? Like, you're supposed to give me a ride. On top of that, there's some other issues, like the fact that he's supposed to have her work shirt, and he should have her work visor because it's supposed to be in his car. So she's messaging him. He doesn't show up. He's not there. At this time, there is surveillance video at 5:45 and 6:45 that shows someone wearing Nathaniel's clothing. Looks like they're Nathaniel's height, size, everything, but you cannot see the face because it's covered. But they are wearing everything of Nathaniel's. Goes to an ATM with Samantha Josephson's ATM card and tries twice to withdraw money, is unsuccessful. Once Nathaniel does get back to Maria's, she needs a ride to work and she's in a hurry. But according to her, she needs her work shirt. He has it, but it's wet. She's like, hey, but where's my visor? It's usually in the back window. It's not there. And he's like, it's in the country. And she's like, why is my visor in the country? And he's like, it had blood on it. So, of course, she asks the question, why does my visor have blood on it? And he tells her to mind her business. Now, according to Maria, at first she thought, did he hit a dog or something? Because she looks into his back seat and realizes that he's taken a white sheet and draped it all over the back seat, even up onto the back of the driver's seat. But it's kind of fallen, so she can see there's blood. There's blood all over the back seat of the car. And so she's asking, what is this blood? And according to Maria, he says, mind your business. And she said, okay, I got to get to work. So here's some gas money. Take me down to the gas station, get some gas money, and drop me off at work. Come back at 5 and pick me up. And she just moves along with her day. According to her, she just was confused. She didn't know. She's kind of scared. Like, what the heck is going on? I don't know what she thought it could be at that time. Did she just think like maybe he covered for someone? Did she think, was there not a part of her that ever thought he could have done something to someone? Who knows what her thoughts were. Nobody's comfortable with it, but Maria does end up being a very valuable witness to the prosecution in this case. So she continues to testify that day he does not show up at McDonald's at 5 to pick her up, and so she ends up getting a ride home. When she gets home, she has to bang on the door. She says he opens the door and looks according to her, shook. And he's still in the same clothes from the day before, and they have blood on them. And she is like, what is going on? She says it's obvious he's been out cleaning his car, but then he's asleep and he's been in her bed and he's dirty. And she's asking him, like, why haven't you showered? Why haven't you changed your clothes? And at that point, she's just gotten home from work. She takes a shower and she realizes that she needs to go get her daughter. Apparently, she thought her mom was going to pick her up, but her mom's asleep. Her mom hasn't picked her up, and she has to go get her daughter. I'm not comfortable with this decision either. But according to Maria, knowing there's blood all over the inside of that car, she makes the decision to drive that car across town to go pick up her daughter from daycare and bring her daughter home. And Nathaniel's riding in the passenger seat while she drives. And according to her, he has like Clorox antiseptic wipes and is wiping things down inside the vehicle while wearing gloves, including the murder weapon. She says at this point, she's just petrified. Like, what the hell is going on? Why is he cleaning a knife? Why is there blood everywhere? She says eventually they get home and she notices that her daughter has blood on the bottom of her shoe. She throws the shoe into the closet, and eventually she sees the Impala on the news and she's freaked. And she ends up telling his brother, like, something's up, like that's his car. And then that's when everything kind of goes haywire. He gets arrested. But that being said, she said she was scared, but then when he was arrested, she was in the car with him. I mean, like, it's on the surveillance, but they don't really talk about it at the trial. Like, I don't know. How scared were you? But I don't want to get involved because at the end of the day, like, I don't think I don't think she did it. I just have, a lot of issues with her character, that she would not immediately call the police, and the amount of evidence that could have got lost, or that you would be okay with hanging out with you and your child with this kind of person. So I don't know. At the time, she said her life was different. Hopefully, she's made changes that are a lot safer for her and her daughter now. Now, as well as the ATM videos that showed someone that clearly looks like Nathaniel, but you cannot verify that is him, there's also surveillance of him going to the cellular store to try and sell Samantha's phone. He takes her phone the next day to a cellular store and tries to sell it, which he's unsuccessful. Now, at this cellular store, you can see in his car in there, and you can see that this white sheet is across the back seat, which kind of corroborates what Maria said, that he did take a white sheet and drape it over the back of the seat. Because I just still don't understand. So his defense is like, yeah, I think someone stole my car, committed a huge crimes, but I just decided to sell everything that I found and was just going to clean it up because, I don't know. Oh, but by the way, they also took my phone, which had a password protection on it, but they were able to unlock it to look up porn. But Now, the one thing that the defense really stuck to is the fact that Nathaniel did not have any injuries, okay? So his blood was on her clothing, but it wasn't on his body. There was a mixture that was not, it was too weak to prove that it was under his fingernails or her fingernails, so we can't go with that. But what there was is that he did not have any injuries to his body. So the idea was, well, if he didn't have any injuries and he viciously, violently attacked her, 120 stab wounds with a double-ended tool, then the idea is that he should have got injuries. I mean, I get the idea, but number one, he had gloves, he had a beanie, he had a long sleeve shirt, he had pants on, he had socks on, he had shoes on, and he had a jacket on. He protected himself, and he probably had some sort of face mask on. He protected himself from all of those things happening. And if you think that it seems unlikely, how about the fact that there were no stab wounds to the back of the vehicle? None of the seats. But we know for a fact that that crime scene happened inside of that vehicle, but yet there were no damages or stab wounds to the car, which the car is completely exposed in this attack, whereas the person doing the attack can cover themselves. So I don't find it that shocking that he didn't stab himself. It was a short knife. So the tool, these were short wounds. It makes sense to me. Unfortunately, I know that, DNA on him or an injury of him would have made it easier. But yeah, the fact that he didn't have any injuries on him just didn't really do much for me. Now, in regards to the leather jacket that he was wearing, they did find what appeared to be striation marks down the jacket, which would be consistent with somebody clawing, but they were unable to prove that these were in fact claw marks from Samantha. They could just prove that it looked like that, but they were inconclusively proven. So at the end of the day, there's absolutely no doubt that somebody using everything in Nathaniel's was in Nathaniel's car committing this crime against Samantha, and it appears that it's Nathaniel. The digital evidence really backed that up by the fact that their cell phones were together. His cell phone had a password, which he never even gave to police. So getting into his phone was able to prove that, having all of her stuff, selling it the next day, driving around his car with blood in it and cleaning it all up. Yeah, that pretty much still, just seals the deal. Watching the trial was difficult. Nathaniel really sits there throughout the trial with a very smug, smirky look on his face. There are times where Maria's testimony, so that was the girl that he was dating at the time, I have a feeling there's some things in there that she embellishes or exaggerates or kind of changed a little bit, because you can almost see this kind of like look on his face like, that's not true. But then he can't say anything, because then it would be like, well, what about the other stuff though? It's just almost like he has the audacity to be offended that she told a lie when you did what you did. But like he's going to be mad at her for telling one lie when you did all of these horrible, vicious things. Not a good person. As the judge explained, he considers him to be a monster. He explained to the family after the mother testified of Nathaniel after he was convicted. She said that he was innocent and did not commit this crime. The judge interrupted her to let her know that no, your son did. He did. He's been convicted of it. He did this crime. And there's no way that this came out of nowhere. This is a vicious person who's done bad things. And there probably was warning signs. In fact, one of the things that I brought up in my last video is that there was a prior charge. I don't know if the charge ended up as a conviction or if they just didn't go anywhere with it, but he's been charged in something similar. He was only charged with selling stolen goods in this case, or in the prior case. But in the prior case, a woman was carjacked, taken home, and a bunch of items were stolen from her, and then they were sold. Now, Nathaniel was seen selling these items, but according to the woman, she never saw the face of the person who was driving, and so it very well could have been Nathaniel. But in that case, there was nothing further. So it was a mess. It's a sad one. It breaks my heart. I know that Nathaniel's family feels that he's innocent. I just don't. And so therefore, Nathaniel Rowland will spend his life in prison. Again, I will link all the information down below in regards to Samantha Josephson, especially in regards to Sammy's Law, which is a legislation that is being presented to just help a way to protect riders from getting into the wrong vehicle. It's to protect anyone from faking being a rideshare, to help out and make sure we don't get into the wrong vehicle. So thank you so much for being here. For those of you that have been with me, my apologies that I've been missing this last month. I decided this time when I was going through something just to take it off. Just take it off. I get to where I feel really a lot of guilt and I want to overly apologize. And I know you guys are just really supportive, good people, and you understand what's going on. I lost a dear friend. I feel like I don't even want to tell you guys anymore. Like the way that it feels like death is around me lately. It's hard. I'm trying to keep my head up. Last year was hard, and then this year started hard, and then last month we lost a dear friend. It was actually my sister's childhood best friend, who was like one of our best friends. We considered her another sister. So it affected my whole family. It was just devastating. She passed from cancer, and I'm just pissed. Too young. That just breaks my freaking heart. So I've been dealing with that, and I just needed a little bit of time to collect myself. And I spent the time just basically watching court trials to keep my head I just needed to focus for a little bit. So thank you guys for that. I'm back. I'm good. I have a couple things for you guys. They are coming, and that's it. I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to get this video edited and uploaded to you. And I say this at the end of every one of my videos. Hug your babies and hug your loves. Life is literally precious. Enjoy every minute of every day, and do not take anything for granted. I love you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. My foot fell asleep.
I'm just good at caring too much. I'm just good at caring too much. Is it too much to ask that